Good afternoon, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies for today's Monday's Musings for the week ahead on the 4th of March 2024. There's a lot. Gosh, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to be experienced. There's a lot to process this week. There's a lot coming to light to almost... excuse me, itchy breast, to almost crack us open, to almost help us reconnect to what it is we need now, help us really understand the barriers that we have put in place at times that have been necessary, but now that may be actually holding us back, that may be fueling, feeding our inner fears. And it is in relation to the masculine. I've just had the most mind-blown, profound walk of my own medicine wheel. Something that used to take years, not years, but a lengthy time for me to process. I'd get very caught up in my mind, and then very caught up in my emotions, and then very caught up in my spiritual well-being, and then very caught up in the actions. And I would say that each part of that cycle have become separate components of the self, which they are. But as I've matured, as I've aged, as I'm going through the change myself, I'm recognizing the true beauty of continuous shifts, growth, change, whatever you want to call it, by merging them all together, by working alongside all elements within us, by really holding space for the natural progression of whatever is occurring without standing in the way, without putting my expectations, my boundaries, my judgments, my limited understanding onto something. And it's that we could maybe come up against today, but in particular this week, the recognition that our understanding is as limited as our ability to experience what is occurring. You know, if we're to truly understand change, we must experience that change. If we're to truly witness and be part of something we are trying to transform, then we too must be transformed. And to let go of any fear, doubt, concern, or disbelief in that, however it may come disguised. So today, I was going to say this week, so it could be an ongoing thing. Today, really felt into a lot of things that were coming up for me. Firmly believed I was walking my own medicine wheel, which I was to an extent, but being acutely aware of my ability to overanalyze things, to overthink things, could have almost stopped me in my tracks. It's a great gift to be able to witness and see many perspectives, but in particular as we lead up into the Pisces full moon, Pisces new moon, that hanged man energy. If we are to stand back and just watch and just watch and just watch, eventually all those different perspectives are pure potential with nothing acted on it. And this week, a lot of the changes are going to come from embodying all aspects of the medicine work, including the action, because it's in the action that the change actually comes. Now that action could be sat, feeling, holding space, being aware of what is occurring for you without doing your normal knee-jerk reaction. And that's the emphasis. If something is going to change, then the action is not going to be the same. So if you're normally someone that would do something about something that's occurring, maybe take a step back. Maybe see what else is to you. Go beyond your own understanding of yourself. So if you're normally someone that would react or someone that would go within, maybe do the opposite. Or maybe do what you're doing, but don't forget to gain the treasure from it. So this morning on my journey, yes, going through a lot of these mental signs, synchronicities, things that were occurring, being very aware of it being past trauma, including the ability to witness and observe everything coming from that episode in my life. But rather than going within, switching off, putting in these boundaries, I could do that, but also embrace something different. I could do that, but also feel where they were coming from. I could do that, but also heal that by releasing some of them to myself. Going deeper this week is going to be the key, going beyond what we understand, beyond what we've done, beyond what we see, which actually brings me into the realization of why I've picked one of the decks today, the Shaman's Dream Oracle. This is a new deck for me. Now, I got these the day before yesterday. I haven't really worked with them. I don't really know anything about them, but I do a lot of work with Alberto Villoldo, including the Moon Key Rites. And What I love about them is the whole medicine wheel energy and analogy, but coming back to the space of the heart. There's only so much the mind can understand alone, and that we have to bring in the heart resonance and the heart coherence this week as well. But again, there's only so much the heart can understand alone. So really uniting the masculine and the feminine within us, those emotions and our own internal intellect, is what's going to bring forth the wisdom that we're searching for. It's what's going to help us dream. So I don't normally work a lot with oracle cards. People always say to me, is there a difference between oracle and tarot? And yes, the tarot follow a structure. They follow the tree of life, the soul's journey. They are linked to Kabbalah and astrology, and they have a lot more avenues through which you can be guided. The oracle cards don't. However, that can be part of their beauty. And this week in particular, when we feel as if we have no structure, when we feel as if we don't know what else to do, and things may have turned out not quite how we had expected, what that does is it opens up pathways, particularly neural pathways, but also nervous system pathways, to experience something different here. And that's what the oracle cards for me do. Both oracle and tarot are keys to the subconscious. They are imagery, pure and simple, that speak to us on a soul level. We recognize energy within them based on the pictures that we see, and that opens up our psyche. So they're a meditative tool to our own understanding and our own knowing, which is why you often have a reading and think, well, yeah, I knew that. Of course I knew that. So in that, the beauty of the oracle cards is there's no real structure there. Of course you have the guided imagery. There will always be, and that feels quite important this week, there will always be a foundation behind what we experience, and that will be our experience. That will be what helps us to interpret the messages, the imagery, whatever is occurring, and we need to be aware of that this week. Where are we acting from? What structure is forming the foundation of the path that we are walking in regards to relationships, in regards to soul relationships with ourselves, more importantly, and our ability to return to that energy, to experience the human life, but also to keep returning back to the spiritual wisdom with that knowing, a bit like the wolf returning to the pack. Okay, I found this out about myself, bringing that back to the soul so that the soul can expand through our own consciousness of ourselves. So it is a bit trippy this week. Pen marks everywhere. Looks like I've got a stigmata. It is a bit trippy this week, and that feels like part of the inner insight, if you will, that Christ consciousness trying to come into light with the masculine. We're coming up to Astara, we're coming up to Easter, we're coming up to the rebirth of the light within us, and I feel that in my chest. I feel as if that can almost bring forth a bit of a, not a chest infection, but a clearing of the chest, and in particular the lymphatic system. So being very aware of that deep breaths, movement with this energy, not against this energy, flowing with it, doing what we need to do, recognizing where those boundaries are, why those boundaries are there, and whether or not they're serving us to connect to ourselves, or whether or not, again, they're feeding, fueling, I can't remember the other word, the 3 F's. It is that fight or flight action here, that response. Recognizing we have our own way. So yes, we have fight and flight and fawn and fornicate, and yeah, there's so many different, but there's as many different fight or flight actions, as many different trauma responses as there is trauma and people. And what feels really important this week is to recognize your own. So one of mine is definitely to overanalyze, definitely, because I don't want to face or feel what it is I'm feeling underneath. So being acutely aware of the many different ways we can disassociate, not from what's occurring, but from our own soul. In that will lie the medicine that will help return us to this oneness within, which is what this is all about. Come Easter, I want to say the end of this week, but definitely come Easter, that's what this is all about. We have the equinox coming, the spring equinox coming. We are going to go into Aries season. It is going to get less, I want to say trippy, but it isn't trippy, it's murky, and it is going to get less emotionally murky, but we must navigate these internal waters first before we get to the other side. And I almost see like a land ahoy. It is coming, how we listen to the body, always listening to the body for the routine, the structure, the foundation of where we are. So Our mind can be in judgment and expectation and assumption. Our spiritual energy can always be more advanced than where we are as well, particularly when it comes to like with things like the whole fast food, fast spirituality, fast attainment, fast enlightenment. You know, we can be very aware of our own potential and not recognize the steps that are needed to get to that. Our emotions can be in a completely different place from where we are, and so too then can our actions. But our body will always show us the impact of our mind. Our body will always show us the impact of our potential, our spiritual well-being, our mental well-being, and our emotional well-being. So if you want any action this week, listen to the body. It is the medicine wheel that holds it all. And I know that's really not the normal way that we see enlightenment, but hey, if we're coming up to Pisces season and we're encouraged to see things from a different perspective, we would see that energy as the Heyoka, or the time of Pachacuti, the world on its head, looking at ourselves from a different angle, seeing our soul through our human perspective, and then perhaps seeing our human perspective as a very valid component of our soul. I like the idea of the Shaman's Dream Oracle. I've had conversations with my son before, who is a Pisces, recognizing as well that the Pisces energy is the last sign in the astrology, so it has all the experience from the other signs. And no matter what happens this week, knowing that we have all the experience from these journeys, we may think, oh gosh, this is coming up again. Yes, well, you have experience. You have experience of this. You're not in that place. You're in a different place. And to recognize growth, it is to experience something that would have once knocked us from the place we are now. Only then will we truly see our own growth. And that's that natural progression. We don't have to try or do anything different. We just have to be from where we are, because growth has naturally occurred within us. Anyway, a conversation with my son, a Pisces, and he once said to me at a very young age, it was his birthday this weekend, love you, babe. At a very young age, he once said to me, but Mum, what if when we're dreaming, that's actually real life, and when we're awake, it's all a dream? What if, right? And this week, being really guided to look at things from completely different energies. Ram Dass has a beautiful saying that we're all walking each other home. For me, that kind of has a connotation of it being somewhere that we're headed towards. What if home is always here? And that is what we're bringing ourselves back to in every moment. That is the structure of the medicine wheel. What if the human body is the medicine wheel? Anyway, on that note, let's look at the energies for this week. Gosh, can you imagine how much better? I know I would treat my body so much better if I just let that sink in a little bit. Self-care, wouldn't be a luxury anymore. It'd be obvious, right? It'd be soul care, not self-care. And maybe there's something in that, looking at the terminology we use. So this week in particular, if we say that it's for us and it's for our own good and it's what we need, in particular those that may not be able to speak of their own needs, that can be quite difficult. If it's for our soul and the highest good and the greatest good and all that kind of stuff, it's a little bit easier, I know for myself, to stand behind that, to fight for that. Maybe looking at why that is, I will definitely reflect on that after this reading, but also feeling into the truth of that. When we care for our body, we're caring for the vessel that carries our soul. Therefore, when we care for our body, we are caring for our potential, because without our body, it doesn't occur. So really flipping the narrative this week. Okay, energies this week and how to best navigate them. It feels important not to get too caught up in them. So I'm aware that this is in the afternoon. I've normally done it by the morning. I am in a little bit of a rush, and that feels okay. It feels quite important to know that if the energy is faster than what is occurring around us, it's because we don't have to stay there as long. So if things are happening quite quickly, changes in particular, okay, it's because they've reached the end stage, the end game, the final, the finish line. Six of Cups, the finish line here, and really being aware of the temptation to be nostalgic with that, allowing things to pass, allowing things to cross over, to be transformed now emotionally. Why do we not do that? Why do we feel as if we have to delve in more? Well, I know that if I was to continue this reading further than it needed to be, it would be coming from a place of, was it good enough? Did I share enough? Did I give enough information? Well, ultimately, people are only going to get what they need based from where they are. And this week, that feels quite important to recognise that the individual journey is that, yes, we have the collective dream, but we have the individual journey, and people have the right to understand and experience what is occurring for them based on their own truth this week. Okay, and we have temperance at the bottom of the pack, so it's about holding space for that, witnessing that, but ourselves as well. And yeah, a real fine art of chopping wood, carrying water, getting on with the everyday things as well, keeping physically embodied here, but just allowing our emotions to play themselves out for the wisdom that they can bring. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, now I was undecided whether to work with the dragon cards again, because they do bring through this energy, but it almost feels like there's no escaping the fact that this week, just like last week, is a week of major arcanas. There are huge shifts occurring. Everything has been ramped up. For me, this isn't new, because March is always the time I deliver, so I'm kind of in the flow, but even that feels quite intense. So for those that are even used to this extreme energy, it can still feel pretty damn powerful. Okay, so recognizing that those around you that may have normally had their stuff together may not, because it's affecting everybody. And overall with that, we have the Nine of Wands, so being very mindful of any defensive action that may come from reaching for help for people that are unable to offer that. And I can really relate to that today in particular, but overall. And it is a 9, it is coming to the end of that, it is coming to that spiritual conclusion, that bitter pill, that only you can do what it is you need to do. You can ask for support, you can ask for help, but recognizing how that can make us defensive in our vulnerabilities, and how that can make us perhaps put up boundaries that may not have been necessary. So even though this is the Nine of Wands, what I see is one of these wands actually looks like a sword here. One of these wands actually looks like a dagger. So being very aware of, actually a couple of them now look like daggers, being very aware of our own intellectual understanding of the spiritual energy behind something, really feeling into that, doing so from a soul level. When we are asking for help, doing so from a soul level, really seeing our own potential and then asking for help from it, is going to change the whole game. It's going to be less defensive and more experienced this week. There's a real difference between somebody that says, I need this help because I've done this, this and this, or somebody that stands in what they've done and then says, I need some help. Because you believe them and you believe yourself, then there's less guilt there, there's less over analysing what is being experienced, there's less defensiveness there. Okay, so on the Monday we do have the World card, and in this deck we do have the dragon energy speaking up for itself, and all other dragons kind of hearing that, being activated, being awakened with that. And we may find that when we stand in who we are and what it is we are here to offer, yes, of course, we invite the permission in other people to do that, but they may not be used to that. We may not be used to seeing that side of them, and it may cause a little bit of a free-for-all, rigmarole type energy of shouting, screaming, letting things out, and everybody speaking and nobody hearing. So really coming in more into the power of the voice, the transformative power of the voice, and you can feel that really changes everything. Grounding into the power of the voice. If we believe in ourselves, we don't have to go shouting it about. It comes across. And on the Monday, that's going to be key. This is all a lesson about believing in ourselves and the connection that we have with the world and what it is we are here to do. So going into that flame in our throat, our shadow self, our huasca, and the light that can bring forth, rather than letting it all out, letting it build, letting it transmute, feeling what needs to be cleared for you on an individual level, while others fly around and do whatever it is they need to do. It makes me thirsty. On the Tuesday we have the Death card, and it's just as I feel thirsty, and it is that almost that thirst for endings now, particular with things that can keep coming up. It's almost like a mercy, bringing in the archetype of death and saying, help me with this, help me change this, help me transmute this, help me to let go of this now, because there's blossoming to be had here. But again, in this card, the dragon energy is around the mind. Okay, it's around the head, it's around how we think about death, how we think about change. So, there are many stages that come before the ultimate result of what we want. 9 times out of 10, most deep soul level manifestation doesn't directly happen straight away. There are steps, depending on what we've put in the way of that manifestation, steps that need to end so that other things can blossom. And we may want it all done so we can get to the end result. We may mentally feel as if we're doing something wrong if that doesn't happen. Recognizing death for the continuous process it is as well. Grief, death, change, birth, all of them. It's continuous growth. Okay, so endings are growth as well. And we may have ending after ending after ending after ending. It's growth after growth after growth. So it is our responsibility, our joy, if you will, our potential and opportunity to bring in what do we need. Yeah, when there's an ending, what do we then have space to bring in for ourselves? Keeping that balance, that is down to us, particularly mentally on the Tuesday. There is the temptation to go back to old habits and old ways of thinking. That is up to us to look at whether or not we are still growing from that. Today I could have very easily got caught in the analytical circle. Oh, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I get to see this perspective, that perspective, and not move on. And I love it. Yeah, my mind, my ego, my spiritual ego loves to be able to see all these different things, but actually the impact on my body, the impact on my mind from not hearing my emotions and just being with them wasn't promoting growth. It wasn't promoting beauty. It was promoting a dark abyss of death that wasn't actually occurring, more of a terminal illness than a death. And yeah, really being encouraged to look at that, in particular on the Tuesday. On the Wednesday, that's where we recognise that it's always been about strength. It's always been about our connection to the divine. However, in this pack, the strength card is in the place of justice. So it's always been our own balance that has brought that connection. It's always been about returning to the centre self. It's always been about finding that peace, that courage, that wisdom, that determination within us to stand in who we are. That's all the strength that is needed. We don't need to fight from that perspective. You can see this card here. It's hard to tell who the wings belong to. Do they belong to the dragon? Do they belong to the feminine? Are they one and the same here? Either or, it really doesn't matter. What's important is that beautiful red behind her, that root chakra, that grounding energy of standing in who we are. On the Wednesday it's really recognizing that the beginning part of the week, and it is intense. It is intense, but that's what it's all been about. On the Thursday, we have the first minor arcana, and it's the 7 of Pentacles. On the Thursday, that's where it comes down to us to recognize the growth that has occurred and to be patient with that, to tend to that, to nurture that. On this card, you literally have different pentacles, different ways of seeing different magic, different ways of seeing the elements. We have the dragon energy here. We have union. There's a metal energy here. There's dragons with wings. So many different ways to see growth, so many different ways to see endurance, so many different ways to see evolution, transformation and change. What matters at the very center of it all is how do you see it? For you to say that you have moved on, that you have grown from this, what does that entail, and what do you need on a human individual level to promote that, to sustain that, to nurture that, to identify that within you as part of the medicine that you now offer yourself. Because on the Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we have the Emperor. And that, as we start to really think about going into Aries season, that is kind of what is coming to light. Yeah, how we stand with what it is we are saying no to, how we stand with what it is we are going to create as a side effect to that. So it's not just about what we're saying no to, it's about what we're creating. Sometimes we need that balance, particularly is what we're saying yes to. What are we saying yes to? it can be very difficult to stand firm in what we no longer are willing to put up with. Sometimes, I know myself included, sometimes we need to really feel about what it is we are inviting in. Why are we saying no? So this morning, why am I saying no to overanalyzing? Because actually I want to feel, because I want to continue moving around my own medicine wheel and bring in that change. Ultimately on the Friday, that's what it's all about. Sitting on the foundations of change that we are bringing in, recognizing what our structure is. You know, when I said about the tarot and there being that underlying, whether it's the tarot or the oracle, that underlying structure and foundation of your own psyche, of your own soul, of your own connection, of your own understanding and your own truth. It's all about that. Seeing every opportunity this week to open up to who you are here, to let go of any ideas that no longer sustain you in regards to that, to have the strength and the courage to stand in your own truth is what's going to bring forth the growth. On the Saturday we have the 10 of Swords, and on the Sunday we have the 10 of Cups. And I want to put those 2 days together because it almost feels like an end of our own mental battles here. An uplifting, an unveiling of our own wisdom beyond it, and as a result the 10 of Cups, that fulfillment. However, they are both at the end, so you may find that things no longer fulfill you. You may find that you've reached the point of something being enough, and that may take you into this mental journey of, oh, I shouldn't want this, or all these judgments, all these feelings that you are being betrayed or betraying yourself or your needs or whatever. And it feels like a bit of a dance over the weekend, which is when we do have that new moon, and we also have Mother's Day. And that ultimately is what it feels like it's all building up to, our ability to create, to nurture the mother within us and our connection to our own mother. So when I said the wings could be coming from the feminine or from the dragon, and is there a difference? Not really. The dragon energy we are working with is our own connection to our feminine power, our own connection to the earth beneath us, and that is causing some mental disruptions in regards to what we want, some mental endings when we view what actually brings us joy, including how we see ourselves, including the relationships in our life, including what it is we now want to take forward. And it's intense. It is intense. This is a new moon of seeing everything from a different perspective, ourselves included. But let's go back to temperance now. Let's just play with it. Let's just lighten it up. Let's just let this dragon in us do what it needs to do. This energy within us do what it needs to do, because ultimately we do know what we need to do. Keep coming back to the body. What do we need in order to sustain that growth? What does our body need? Basic needs: food, water, nature, rest, love. What do we need in order to just allow these changes to occur? Our body knows how to alchemize. It always has and it always will. So what do we need to reconnect to that truth? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major arcanas. The turning point is going to come from fates or conditions, conditioning outside of us, concerns outside of us, issues outside of us that we may not have any control over. And that's the key. We have no control over, or we may not have any control over. And being okay with that, letting go, doing your part, and knowing that the rest will sort itself out. So coming back to your energy always, holding space for the person that is now being evolved through you, within you, and your place here. Letting go of anything that no longer serves that, and having the courage, the strength to recognize that this is the justice that you wanted. This is the balance that you sought, and standing in that truth. This is the conversation you've been having with the world around you. This is the world that you've been creating through your own dreams. So being aware of that. Now, I am very aware that that could be quite a triggery aspect, and that's where I feel drawn to look at the minor arcanas. Yes, of course, there may be things said this week that trigger people, glimmer people, cause a reaction within people that they may not have known about, and it's their reaction. Okay, so you speak your truth. It may not be the truth for everybody else, and it may not be the truth, but what feels really important this week with the 9 of Wands is that you speak your truth. You don't have to get everybody else to jump on board and agree with you, because then that would be over-influencing other people and taking them away from their truth. Standing in your own, recognizing the boundaries that you have with yourself, Okay, again, coming back to, are they now needed, or are they a reaction from your own trauma responses? Again, no judgment there. If they're going to help you sustain your own growth, so be it. And that's where we do look at the Pentacle card. So we actually have one of each suit. The elements are going to be in balance here. And I say that just as we're looking at the Pentacle card. So in order to physically grow this week, it is vital that we keep all aspects of ourselves in balance. So we have one wand card, which is the 9 of Wands. Rather than get defensive, step back when we need to. Reconnect to our own spiritual morals, our own spiritual truth, and our own spiritual strength here from the experiences that we have gained. Physically, if we want this growth, we must tend and nurture to our body. It is as simple as that, because our body is a vital component of the journey that we're on. Emotionally, if we really want to bring forth that fulfillment, again, we have one cup card here. We need to be open to what it is our heart is desiring, and to really recognize without the judgment that that is the truth for us in that moment. Mentally, we have to let these cycles come to an end. It's the 10 of Swords. We have to let these cycles come to an end rather than get caught in them, going through the process, rather than defending our mental stance, knowing that any physical growth is actually going to come from opening our heart and letting our mind come to an end, because they're working together, not against each other. And that this week is going to be something that we're really drawn to look at. So 30 minutes in, I'm going to pull a card from the Shaman deck. With the understanding that I do not know what they mean, and that feels quite beautiful. Sometimes it's you remember those times when you're just learning something for the sheer fun of it, when you know that joy, that curiosity that can come from not knowing. It's almost like it's avoiding this has become a bit of a trauma response. So really looking into why we would want to know everything. That perceived safety there, and yet knowing that we cannot know everything, and to know everything actually stops us from dreaming, to really feel into the safety that can come from having joy with the unknown and the curious playfulness, gentleness that will then open our vision to what we've always known inside. It feels almost as if there's a part of us that has been needed to be protected from ourself. Yeah, I struggled to say that then, ourselves, until we were ready to see it. Okay, so let's have a card. So the card that I've pulled is Beloved, and it's the radical acceptance. Okay, and the one underneath is Sky Bridge, a possibility for union. Yeah, now I have no idea what these cards mean, but I do see the moon here, and I do see 2 pillars, and it almost reminds me of the High Priestess energy, and it almost reminds me of going beyond that veil now, going beyond what we see for ourselves, and really looking into that light that is there. Really stepping up towards our potential, not getting so distracted by all the things that are stopping us from doing that, no matter what guise they come under. You know, really feeling into, is this fulfilling my potential? Is this allowing me to be open to the light that I am? I know if I'd stayed in the mental understanding, much as I might like to think it was giving me a bigger perspective, I was caught in the mind. On the medicine wheel, you don't stay in one direction, you go around and through the whole process until you return to the soul. So is that energy really helping you bridge a union with your soul here? Stepping up to the mark by recognizing the needs of the body, seeing beyond the illusion of polarity, knowing that the body is the soul and the soul is part of the body as well. Whatever you're experiencing, whether you believe it's ego-led or in the mind or emotions or what, it really, really doesn't matter. And I say that with all the love in my heart and in my world and in my vision. It's all you. It's all you. And that's where we come on to knowing that if we are going to bridge that union, heaven and earth, Pachacuti, yeah, if we are going to bridge as above so below, as within so without, then there needs to be a beloved, radical acceptance of ourselves. Okay, really feeling into that burning wisdom in the heart. Is this bringing me home to this every time? Is this opening me up to this? Or is it protecting me from this? Why do I need protection from accepting who I am? What would happen if I actually did that? So you do have the 2, which would be the High Priestess, but you also have 4 and 7, which is 11. Okay, so really accepting that more divine energy within us, that angelic energy within us. So let's see what Alberto and Colette have actually said about these cards, and that feels quite nice. It's not necessary to know the opinions of others, but once we have our own, we can actually open our perspective and our wisdom and our experience by bringing in the energy of other people's views, depending on where we are, obviously. So the object of affection, radical acceptance, loving what is. When the beloved appears, it requires 100% of the heart, body and soul. Don't try to squeeze the beloved into your schedule. Drop the busyness and receive the one you have been waiting for. Know that this card comes as a mirror to show you the divine within and invite your radical acceptance of everything you consider beautiful or ugly in your being. The beloved may not be a person at all. It may be a business venture. And we forget that. We forget that particularly in the spiritual arena when it comes to starting out a business. We forget that our business is our soul. It has a soul as well. It's part of us. So how can we bring that business into us? How can we love that? How can we unite with that? How can we create and, consensually create with that business rather than being a slave to it, and with our own divinity and with our own source of creation as well? How can we unite with that energy? It might be a business venture, a project or an adventure calling for your full attention. And again, these things that are going on for us, these responses, how can we bring them in? How can we date them, court them, love them, flirt with them, have a little bit of fun and curiosity with them? Love it, let it light you up and give it your all. Surrender to this truth and know that you are gaining a passport to bliss, even when it feels that you are being consumed by the fire of the beloved. And sometimes it's intense, right? Today in my chest, oh my God, I could feel my soul calling me out of the overanalyzing, and it hurt in my chest. It wasn't the stories, they were yeah, of course, but it was the disconnection from that energy in my chest that it was screaming and calling me back in like a fire, and really feeling into that intensity this week. Everything we're feeling in the chest is the soul calling us back home to the body. Do not hold back or be afraid, for you will emerge transformed. Surrender is the key. Allow yourself to be loved. Ongoing, right? Usher the harsh critic out the door and shut your eyes and ears to the judgment of others who have not been ignited by the divine blaze consuming you, for they will only attempt to douse your fire and leave you choking on the smoke. And being aware of that. And it's not in a negative way, it's not in a manipulative or a nasty way. It's just that we all are able to feel and sit with our own flame in different ways. And if we are seeking guidance, advice, wisdom, reflections, whatever, from people that are unable to do that at the same level, that could really douse our fire, that could really subdue our passion, our light. So being very aware of that this week in particular, and standing up for the right to be as bright as you need to be. That doesn't mean we need to be defensive. That just means they're there, you're here. We're all on this journey together, and there's that radical acceptance there. Be careful you are not seduced by false promises or falling prey to your extraordinary ability to sabotage your dreams and desires. Yep, owning that one. Sync with and sink into your heart and trust your sense of what is true, and you will know what to do. The true beloved is never false. Every gift is valuable. Recognize the many faces of the beloved and welcome them into your heart, and you will be so glad you did. So again, there may be parts of us that we may think, I'm not that keen on that, so that can't be true. The heart is the heart. We have many hats, many heads, many branches of our own tree, and just accepting them and welcoming them all home as part of our truth. We don't have to like them. Doesn't make them less true, right? And just by accepting them could bring back a bit more of liking them and recognizing them for the joy and the treasure that they could bring. Okay, so the Sky Bridge, number 47. Possibility for union, what needs to be connected or disconnected. And remembering, when we're disconnecting, we are connecting to something else. You stand before a seemingly unbreachable abyss, and there is no possibility of retreat. The path behind you is no longer a viable option. Heads up this week. There is no going back. You have to act soon. Don't let that instill a fight or flight reaction within you, though. You're ready. For whatever actions are needed, you are ready. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. You have to act soon, though, or you run the risk of being stuck at the edge of the cliff. Life has brought you to this moment to offer you as yet undreamt possibilities. But you must no longer postpone what you know to be inevitable. And yes, you are allowed a breath or two before the leap. So take a bit of time to yourself. Get away for a day or two. That keeps coming up for me, so I will take that on board. Of contemplation, or even just a few minutes walk to clear your head. Muster your courage so that you may cross the Sky Bridge. Sky Bridge appears when the moment is absolutely right for a quantum leap. Please remember that this week. Whatever is occurring, it's a massive step in evolution, and the time is right. Really trusting yourself, really trusting what you have gained leading up to this moment, and trusting the path beyond that. You may not know what it is, but you didn't the other stuff, and you still made it through. So really, really trusting that. Life believes you are ready, even if you do not agree. Remember not to confuse your true state of readiness with your plans and preparation. There's a difference there. So going into your core, finding that foundation and really standing firm on that and allowing that to dictate your plans and readiness, not what you think you had planned. Respond with a determined yes and let the universe take care of the details. You need only hold on to your positive affirmation, and the way will become obvious as you take flight and clear the abyss. Now, the positive affirmation is really triggering me because, for me, sometimes it takes more than an affirmation. Speaking it. What about becoming the affirmation? So this week, if an affirmation alone isn't enough, what is? What do you need in order to embody the words that you speak? What do you need to give you that strength, that courage, that resilience, that acceptance of the beloved wisdom within you that's going to cross you from where you are to where you now need to be. I hope you find it with ease and grace. The card underneath was to surrender, but it's going to be different for us all. Finding what is going to help you really trust yourself this week. Take care, have the most incredible week, and I shall see you soon. Take care.